The value of art is not just in the technical execution of it, or the technical skill with which it was made. And I think about this a lot when I think about this shitty demo album that I released in 2022. And I want to talk about this shitty demo album because I want to contextualize what the hell that was and also why I still keep it up. Because sometimes I look at it and I'm like, what is going on there? And I can only imagine other people looking at it as well and being like, what? And yeah, I just want to talk about it in case anyone is interested. It's like 1 a.m. and I'm trying to be quiet, so I've got this big ass mic. And I've had this weird vocal issue recently as well, where my voice just hurts all the time. I'm trying to figure it out. I've been to the GP, so anyway, we'll see how long my voice holds out. But yeah, anyway, so this demo album is called In the Chaos, and I did it all by myself, completely DIY. It's not even mastered. I recorded it in my 1-bedroom flat that I lived in at the time. The biggest challenge to the technical aspect of it, the recording, was that because it was a 1-bedroom flat, the fridge was in the room that I was recording in, because it was in the living room, which was also the bedroom. Like, when I say 1-bedroom flat, I mean like one square with like a corner that was like the kitchen. And sometimes the fridge would emit this like high frequency sound, and it would show up in my recordings because the equipment I had was not suited for that environment. And like, had I had this mic, we would have been fine, but I didn't. And I don't think I even realized how easy it would have kind of been to like get around that issue if I just would have invested a little bit of money. But I also had like zero budget to do this. But I ended up trying to like EQ. If you don't know what that is, it's like editing sound. I tried to edit it out, and it just made the recording sound really weird. So like, for example, there's one song called Apple Tree that just sounds like really weird, and like the quality of it's just really weird. It's because I was trying to EQ that frequency out. So some of the songs on this album sound okay. Wake Up is fine. I know there's people that have listened to that like multiple times, which is really cool. I think In My Head sounds alright. But yeah, but some of them are just kind of like just weird, to be honest with you. And many times I have cringed at the existence of this album, and many times I have considered taking it off streaming services completely, because yeah, it just feels a bit cringy to me to you know, had I made something like that now, I would have been like, this clearly is not good enough to be released. No one's going to want to listen to this, and also I know how to make it better now with all the knowledge I've got now, right? But the reason I've kept it up, at least so far, I can't promise I'll keep it up forever, but the reason I've kept it up so far is because, first of all, the reason I made it was for me. You know, when you make something, like you draw something or you write something, and you look at it afterwards and you just feel a sense of satisfaction because you're like, oh, I had this idea in my head and I actually made it exist in the world. And that's pretty cool. That's the feeling that I had from it. And at the time, as I was working on the album throughout like 2020, 2021, like I was writing the songs, I was going through this huge journey within myself of realizing that I had been letting fear rule my life, and I'd been repressing a huge part of who I am, and I wanted to start living my most authentic self, and that included facing a lot of fears and dealing with a lot of old wounds. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to feel comfortable calling myself a musician. And this was something I've been feeling for years. Like, I wanted to be a musician, but I was like, I will never be good enough. And I just didn't have the concept in my head as a young adult of, like, the fact that you can, like, practice at something and, like, get better at something, and, like, that actually is a thing that works. I didn't think that was possible for me, at least. Weird, but I don't know. I had a lot of weird ideas about myself at the time. And I remember having this thought as I was making the album that I was like, what if I get hit by a bus and I die tomorrow? No one will know this part of me. Because I wasn't playing these songs for, like, hardly anyone. And I was like, what if no one will ever know that this was something that I wanted to do, that this was, like, a vision that I had or whatever, you know? No one will ever know this idea. So I was like, I just want to put the idea out there to the best of my ability. And for my own satisfaction as well, to feel like I expressed this part of myself. And so what I was seeking in making the album was self-expression. And I guess a feeling of self-actualization. And, like, as someone who wanted to be a musician. And I had this story that I wanted to tell. And so I just did it. And it was, well, I didn't just do it. It was a long, long process. And I think the final quality of it does not reflect how hard I actually worked at it. This was the first whole complete project ever in my life that I started and actually finished all by myself. So that in and of itself was a pretty cool thing to me. But so I keep it up for that reason, for me to, like, remember that, like, I did this, and to kind of remind myself of why I did it, right? It was to express something. For me, it was to put something out there, even though it was not perfect. And that meant something to me. And, you know, in the process of making all of these songs, I ended up developing the confidence to apply to music school in London. I sent one of the songs in before the audition, had them listened to. Maybe I actually sent multiple, I can't remember, but there was one in particular. I sent Wings in. And so the whole making of the album contributed very heavily to me getting into music school in London, moving countries, moving to the UK, and my whole entire life changing for the better in ways that I never thought possible. And everything that my life becomes after this is attributed to that, to the fact that I moved and I met all of these people and I learned all of these things. I am a musician now, you know. I've literally got a bachelor's degree in music now, and I would not have gotten to this point if it had not been for the tiny bit of confidence that making that album gave me, you know. And that's really valuable to me. So that's one reason that I keep it up. Another reason is that I love imperfect things in music. I love seeing artists mess up, not because I get, like, some kind of, like, weird, like, haha Nelson from The Simpsons type vibe from it, but because I think it makes them relatable. It humanizes a performance to me, and it makes it feel more real, and it makes me connect to it more. So someone, like, messing up chords, messing up lyrics, their voice breaking, it enhances the experience of a performance or a recording for me. And same thing can be with the quality of something that is recorded. Sometimes I think a lesser quality, quote unquote, whatever that means, can make something have, like, a certain vibe that sometimes really suits theme, or like in folk punk, for example, the themes being talked about are often class differences and struggles and oppression. And when it is recorded, maybe with like a lesser quality, with cheaper equipment or whatever, that that puts you in a place like that. It puts the artist in a place, and when you're listening to that song, it puts you in a space that you can imagine yourself in, and it enhances the message of the song if you're talking about like class differences and poverty, for example, as opposed to that song being recorded with like pristine quality in a studio. It's also down to subjective preference, of course, but do you get what I'm saying? Yeah, I think you get my basic idea. Although I can't remember where I was going with that, but whatever. Whatever, this is just vibes anyway. But yeah, so I keep the album up because I made it for me. I like looking back on it and just sort of being like, okay, this is what I learned from it. This is where it got me. I took myself back. I remember now. I like looking at artists and seeing how they've developed. I like listening to stuff that has a lesser quality sometimes. And I think I really like the idea of like down the line, as I'm recording more and more music with better quality, according to me, I think it'd be really cool if someone who maybe is like my past self would see my discography and be like, I'm going to listen to that first album. Oh, wow, that is quite shit. And then you listen to the new stuff and you're like, oh, but they developed though, Because this is one of the reasons that I thought that I could never be a musician back, some years ago, is because I never saw the progression. I just saw people being good. I saw people having like this innate natural talent, and I didn't understand like that. Like sometimes it really is a progression, and sometimes things are cringy and ugly and like rough as hell around the edges before you get to that end product that people look at and they're like, oh, that's so cool, that's so good, And the sort of guiding star that I'm trying to have with everything I do online, everything I sort of project out into the world of like the online space, with this artist project, is I try to think of my past self. I try to think of my 13-year-old self, my 15-year-old self. I'm not aiming my content to be for 13-year-olds, but like I'm thinking about the person that I was. I'm thinking about my 16-year-old self. I'm thinking about my 18-year-old self, my 20-year-old self, and the ideas I had, the fears I had, the things I believed, the things that I was scared of, the life that I wanted but never thought I could have, all these things. And I try to express a message that would have been useful for me back then, and hope that it is useful to someone else. I try to do this through my music. I try to do this through these random YouTube videos, through my Instagram posts, through my TikToks, like everything that I'm sort of, just throwing out there into the ether. And I can see down the line how once I've got some more music out that is of like a decent quality, I can see how someone like my past self would look at the progression and see hope in that, and see that, oh, maybe I can do something like this too. Maybe I can be a musician, or even, a visual artist or whatever, because, hey, like, look at this. This was not very good, but there's been progression since. And also, like, hey, look at this person who just has this stuff up, even though it's not that good. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to be ashamed of it. And this is something I think is also a big part of why I want to keep it up, is because I struggle a lot with shame. This is like my big thing in life, is like shame in all different kinds of ways. I think I'm very unashamed in ways that you would expect me to be ashamed, but then I'm like really ashamed in ways that you wouldn't expect me to. And yeah, but shame is a thing that I struggle with, and the sort of cringing at myself is something that I do a lot, even though I believe that being cringe is being free. The concept of cringe as like a bad thing is so cringy in and of itself. Like, I don't believe we should not do things or whatever just because it's cringe. Fuck that. Actually do it more if it's cringe. But I still cringe at myself because we're all hypocrites, aren't we? And I like to challenge myself in like keeping that thing up there and just reminding myself that like actually you don't have to be ashamed. Like you did genuinely, you did what you could with what you had at the time. There's nothing to be ashamed of with that. You have more knowledge now. You knew at the time even that it wasn't even that good, but you did what you could and you still put it out there. Like that was good. That was like kind of brave, even if you want to go that far. Like, you know, it can be such a struggle as an artist to even be brave enough to put your stuff out there because you're so scared that it's not perfect. I was fully aware at the time as well that it was so deeply, deeply flawed and so deeply imperfect. But I still put it out there. And I think that's pretty fucking cool, like, to be honest. And I think we should all have more of that mentality. I don't know what the fuck 2022M was on, but, like, I want some of what they're having because that mentality of, like, I'm just going to put it out there for the sake of putting it out there to, like, show the world even, like, what I'm trying to do because I cannot get it to a better level right now. But I'm going to use this as a stepping stone because that's what it ended up being. It ended up being a stepping stone, right? And yeah, like, there's no shame in doing something imperfectly. And I think putting it into this context, putting this shitty demo album into this context of the journey I was on, the progression that you will be able to see in the future once I have more releases, and all of these things that I've just talked about, it puts it into a context that really reminds me, and I hope it can remind other people of the fact that art is not just about its technical quality. Art is about the context that it exists in. Art is this. I had an art teacher when I was like a teenager who used to say this. This was in visual art, but still, she used to say that, she was probably quoting someone, but she said that art is art and the one that observes it. And she was basically saying that art is the piece of art itself, but it is also what happens when you perceive that art. So if you listen to a song, that is the art is the song, but the art is also what happens to you when you listen to the song. This is why it is such a skill as an artist to be able to communicate what you intend to communicate to the audience. And you can't fully control that because everyone is different, right? But that is the practice about, that is like the skill in art, is like communicating something, right? But sometimes it's more unintentional. And someone coming to listen to like my old shitty songs, or your old shitty art that maybe you've got out there, someone coming to listen to that and then listening to like your good stuff and being like, oh, maybe I can also progress in that way. Maybe I shouldn't give up. Maybe I should keep going. Maybe I should believe in myself. Maybe I should put my stuff out there. Maybe I should not be ashamed of where I'm at right now. That then is the effect of the shitty art that you made, you know? And maybe it doesn't have that effect on someone until years later, but that doesn't make the effect any less real. Art is something that exists in a context of society, history, who it was made by, all these things. And that context can shift and change as time goes by as well. Art is living, and it keeps living and gains new life and a slightly new form with each new person that perceives it. And So the longer I allow it to stay there, the more I can see what it could be. Do you know what I mean? And so to me, on just like a personal egotistical level, it's even giving my old self a bigger chance to like have a voice that matters in any sort of way. This is a very grandiose way of thinking about this random shitty album that like probably no one's ever gonna like care about ever, right? But this is how I think about it. The world is burning. We have to find meaning where we can, and we find meaning in the small things. And this is one of my small things that I find meaning in. This is why I keep the album up there, in case anyone was wondering why it's, one, why it's a bit shit, and two, why I keep it up there. Some of the songs are being remade. The whole album won't be remade because the story has kind of changed. This is the album tells a part of the original story about Harv and Mona, the characters that I like write songs about. And I wrote it to intentionally be very like vague and very sort of like you can read it in multiple ways. I wrote In the Chaos, the album, specifically for you to be able to read it as either a journey of two characters or as a journey of one person and like two aspects of their self, you know. And sort of like the journey, not the arcs that they're on haven't really changed, but the way that I'm expressing the journey and sort of like the lessons of the journey has changed. So that's why I'm not gonna like literally remake the album, but I am rewriting some of the songs, revamping them, and it still tells sort of a part of the essence of their story, but it's very vague. And yeah, that's really it. That's why I keep the album up. Again, I can't promise it'll be up forever, but that's why it's been up so far. And yeah, it is teaching me to be less ashamed of being imperfect. It is helping motivate me to speed up in releasing stuff. And speaking of that, I have got a song that is relatively close to being finished mixing, and I'm excited about it. And yeah, it's easy to look at art, especially your own. If you make anything ever, you will know this. It's easy to look at your own art and be incredibly critical and self-censoring. I think is like a phrase that is used in The Artist's Way, which is a great book if you struggle with this type of stuff. It's easy to fall into that and to sort of like default to like hiding things away, taking them away, censoring yourself. And sometimes sometimes that's not bad. It's good to be intentional about what you put out there sometimes, but it's also fun to just sort of see like what happens if you just sort of like put things out anyway. You never know. You know, me being like, I'm just going to DIY this album. I don't really know what I'm doing. I know it's not going to like be the best. I don't have any budget at all. I'm just going to vibe and see what happens. Ended up domino affecting me into getting into music school, getting a music degree, my whole life changing, like, do you know what I mean? And I'm just really grateful that I chose to do that. And yeah, we need to have a bit of audacity as artists, and we need to become comfortable with being a bit cringe and not being so ashamed of ourselves for the slightest flaw or the slightest mistake or the slightest imperfection. I think we really need that, especially in the times that we're living in now, because I very strongly believe that we are living in times where expressing our experiences, our feelings, our beliefs is so important. Feeling the joy of creating something, spreading that joy and hope to others is extremely important, and it's way more important than creating something that is like technically perfect, whatever that even means, because everyone has different opinions on what is technically perfect anyway. You are always going to be your own biggest critic, probably. I mean, there are exceptions, but most of us are always going to be our own biggest critics, and I think we should all always consider what could happen if we stopped standing in our own way. Because sometimes we are the only thing standing in our own way. And I like having that shitty, cringy demo album up there to remind me that even though I am scared and I'm like, oh, I don't really want people to listen to those songs because they're not very good. Me becoming comfortable with that discomfort can help me become a person who does not stand in my own way. And hopefully, if I can have some delusions of grandeur, maybe hopefully inspire other people to adopt some of that mentality as well. And put their stuff out there, dare to be cringe, not be ashamed, and see where it takes them. That's pretty much it. Alright, thank you for listening. If you listened this far, I genuinely appreciate it. And let me know your thoughts, if you want, or not. I'm probably going to go to bed now. Alright, take care, love you very much. Good night.